All right, I think we're back with better audio tonight. Chief Meteorologist Chrissy Slick with a quick severe weather update for you. I think we figured out the problem with our microphone. We are back in business, so we will start a brand new live stream here. Hopefully you can hear us a little bit better. Let's get you started on some of the warnings that are currently in place right now across the TV5 viewing area. We do have some warnings that are in place for Clare, Isabella, and also Gratiot counties. These areas are seeing currently wind gust potential up to about 60 miles per hour. That is why these are the areas that have severe thunderstorm warnings for the current time. There have been storms that have been producing some hail, but these areas that are producing hail are not up to severe limits. So one of the things that these storms are producing tonight is primarily a wind damage threat. We do have the possibility of some pea-sized hail, but as far as anything that is going to produce anything much more than that, it doesn't seem like that is currently the threat right now. Now, as far as the radar goes, we are keeping an eye on how this line progresses through the area tonight. These areas are going to be currently pushing off to the north and east as time goes on here. They're moving at about 30 miles per hour. Some of the strongest winds, I'm going to jump over to our velocity tool. We did see some severe wind gust potential going towards the Clare County area. It's going to zoom in on the Grand Rapids radar here very soon. Note that the Grand Rapids radar is a little bit further away from the Clare radar, or from the Clare County area, so some of these winds are still primarily aloft, and you're going to detect them closer to the top of the storm. But we're still getting some samples right around 50 miles per hour, 40 miles per hour, and that is likely going to bring at least some of those wind gusts down to the surface, and that's why we have those warnings that are currently in place through about 8:30 or 8:45, depending on which warning you're looking at. And it does appear that the National Weather Service in Gaylord has now extended those severe thunderstorm warnings into portions of Roscommon and also Gladwin counties. Ogama County is not included in that yet, but will have the potential to be included in that here very soon. Those severe thunderstorm warnings for that area, let's see if we can get some information on that. Those are also primarily for 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts, and the National Weather Service in Gaylord has opted to issue that with penny-sized hail, not just the 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts. So expecting potentially some hail that's a little bit bigger in portions of Roscommon and Gladwin County, as opposed to what has been reported so far or issued with the warnings that have been going through Clare, Isabella, and also Gratiot counties. Let's see. I'm going to hop over on our YouTube comments just to make sure the audio levels are a little bit better, potentially in our YouTube comments. Let's see. Standing by on the stream. See if we can get an updated look at our stream here. For whatever reason, it looks like we're a little bit behind on the image that I'm seeing with our latest stream. Okay, we're back. Looks like it's finally starting to catch up a little bit. So we're going to go live with that just to make sure we're all looking at the same thing. We're having some technical difficulties tonight, so I apologize for that. But I think we're finally getting there. Let's go over to the radar, because that's the most important thing, and getting you a sense of where these storms are going. We'll zoom out to the big line first. This is extending pretty much from Roscommon County all the way down into portions of Isabella and also into Gratiot County. It is worth noting that it's already 8:08, and there are some areas that are only included in the severe thunderstorm watch, but that has not been extended off to the east. So areas like Saginaw County, areas like Midland County, Gladwin County, even though the northwesterly section of Gladwin County has been included in a severe thunderstorm warning, potentially what you could be seeing is what we talked about during our newscast tonight. The southern sections of this line that's just to the west of Gratiot County and to the west of Shiawassee County, looking in this direction here, This does not look nearly as strong as this leading edge that is moving up through portions of Isabella, Clare, and also into Gladwin County. So I think what we're seeing is the loss of that daytime heating that we talked about during our newscast. We're losing a little bit of energy as these storms move off to the east, but also the fact that some of these areas that are a little bit farther to the south, those regions had storms come through a little bit earlier in the day. So here's that area of stronger winds that we highlighted on our previous stream before we learned that we were having some technical difficulties, getting some samples of around 50 miles per hour in portions of that storm that's moving through Clare County. And some of these winds, as I mentioned, are probably aloft, a little bit higher than the surface, but it shows you the potential edge, so why these warnings have been issued. I'm going to get the latest info on these and how fast they're moving, because there's probably been some updates to these. It still looks like they're moving between 30 and 40 miles per hour with the latest warning text. So we'll do that, and we'll get a storm track on this. We'll delete our wind readings, and we'll time out where those strongest winds are. And we will go up to 40 miles per hour just to make sure that we're giving the fastest time frame on these areas that have the stronger winds. And we'll push that off to the north and east. And it looks like we've got the latest time frames here into places like Meredith at 8:31, Hamilton 8:25, and Artesia Beach right around 8:47. So those are going up into Roscommon County. That's where it seems like the heaviest, strongest wind is moving, more towards Roscommon County than Gladwin County. You can see how that area lines up with the storm track right about here. Seems to be moving a little bit more in this direction rather than this direction towards Gladwin County. So those are the areas that I think we'll have to keep a closer eye on. But what I'm seeing based on this wind direction here is it's looking more like a straight line wind threat rather than a tornado threat. And the National Weather Service has not opted to include a tornado possible tag, which is something that they do include sometimes when it's a severe thunderstorm warning that may have some signs of rotation, not maybe quite enough for a tornado warning yet, but I'm not seeing them doing that. I'm not really seeing any concerning areas of rotation moving into those areas, so I think we're primarily looking at just a straight line wind threat. And you can really tell where we've got these areas right here where it's really starting to bow out. We call this a bow echo right here. It's almost that backward C shape. And the reason we call it a bow echo is because it looks like a bow and arrow. And what you're seeing when we get this formation right here is you're getting winds that are starting to move towards that center. They're starting to push that center portion of the storm a little bit faster. And if we use our velocity tool, our wind speed tool, you'll notice that the area of strong winds, the strongest winds of that storm, are lining up with that bow echo feature. So that is a really good pop of wind getting set to move into those areas. Let's move off to the south just a little bit into Isabella County. Really looks like we're getting some stronger readings as far as Mount Pleasant is concerned. Just to the west of there, starting to see some wind values approaching about 45 to 55 miles per hour. In that part of the storm, we can do a bit of a track in this area too. Campus is certainly less populated at this time of year with the students mostly home for summer break. However, that's still a pretty good area of wind. Now it looks like if I were to zoom in just a little bit more, that seems like it's mostly moving right along that US 127 business loop. It might just clip campus here. So we've got Isabella Road, we've got Mission Street right here, right through the heart of that area. And if I put a loop on this, it looks like the strongest winds may just clip right on campus in Mount Pleasant, probably more of an impact towards the Mount Pleasant downtown area. And we do have our camera. I'll see if I can pull that up. And apologies for the delay, but I really want to get us a look at Mount Pleasant. We can actually pull up the campus camera right there. Really doesn't look too menacing at the moment, but we'll keep an eye on that camera as it starts getting a little bit closer there. Want to just double check the downtown Mount Pleasant camera. I'm going to move over to our IP cameras and let's try that. How about that? We'll see if it switches over. It looks like we're getting some lightning flashes on that Central Michigan camera. Now let's see if we can get to downtown Mount Pleasant. You can really start to see those trees moving. Doesn't look like anything at the moment, but there is a look at downtown Mount Pleasant as that storm gets set to move in. So we're going to keep a close eye on that camera. Let's get ourselves back to the radar here. And that really is just to the west of Mount Pleasant. I've got that camera pulled up and we're going to stay right there on that camera. Let's see our YouTube comments, if we have any. Doesn't appear so at the moment. There's a look at the latest warnings just to reset a little bit in case you are just joining us. We've got Isabella, Gratiot, Gladwin, Clare, and also Roscommon County. Looks like these warnings are still going to about 8:30 to 8:45. Sky Tracker shows the big picture. We've got these storms passing through tonight. It's all a part of this one thin line. Certainly doesn't look like it's quite as strong as it was coming off of Lake Michigan in this area here, right around the central portion of the line. In a lot of these areas where this is tracking towards are areas that did have showers and thunderstorms a little bit earlier today. So there may be some running into that more stable environment in some of those areas that are a little bit farther to the south, while the areas to the north, if you will, were a little bit more undisturbed during the day. See if we can zoom in here. Still watching that Mount Pleasant camera. And let's go back to our Clare County storm, because that is the one that had the stronger winds associated with that. Looks like those might be coming down just a little bit. The brightest shades of green don't look quite as bright in the latest scans here. Just to the east of Lake George, still looks like we're getting around 50 miles per hour. Starting to see more areas of around 40 miles per hour, 39. Now keep in mind the winds at surface level could be a little bit stronger if some of that wind has come down. I still want you to take these storms seriously as they come through, but it does appear that we're seeing some of that wind come down a little bit more. We did have a tornado warning just to the west of Isabella County a little bit earlier tonight. That was not carried into Isabella County, thankfully. That area of circulation didn't really look like it lasted too long. And so the Weather Service opted to just issue the warning for 60-mile-per-hour gusts. Let's see if we can get back to our Mount Pleasant camera just to see if anything has changed here. Certainly looks like it's raining pretty good. We'll check over On our campus camera, that certainly looks different from a moment ago. Trees don't look like they're shaking too badly. Camera certainly is, but the trees at ground level look okay. So these warnings go until about 8:45. I'm going to pull up our hour-by-hour forecast here just to give somewhat of an idea of when we expect these storms to move through. So they were a bit ahead of schedule, moving into areas like Mount Pleasant. We sent out our newscast tonight around 8 o'clock. They arrived on the western edge right around 7:45 to 7:50. But even our model here is showing a little bit of a weakening trend in some of these showers as they move off to the east. And then as we go through the rest of tonight, things really start quieting down around midnight or so. And then, as we go through tomorrow, why not just talk about tomorrow's threat while we have it? Since there's really not much new happening with those severe thunderstorm warnings, is we've got a chance to have a mostly dry day. But notice right after about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, we start to see a bit of a flare-up towards 4, 5, and 6 o'clock. Judging by the fact that we will have some moisture tomorrow, we expect dew points to still be close to those 60s. We've also got the chance to build up some heat during the day. There seems to be at least a threat for some storms to develop tomorrow afternoon. And then we're also watching what could be another line of showers and storms that could be coming through a little bit later tomorrow. But as I pause that animation, check out what time it is by the time those showers and storms start to arrive from the west. It looks like those start to arrive closer to about 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. That's usually not the most ideal time for showers and thunderstorms to maintain their strength, especially when they're tied to a lot of the daytime heating energy. And that will still have a cold front, so that might be able to make up for a little bit of that. But there's clearly a weakening trend on some of our models as we go into Wednesday morning. So tomorrow's severe weather threat is currently issued as a slight risk for severe weather. We'll see if the Storm Prediction Center adjusts that for tomorrow. A slightly lesser risk for areas like Huron, Sanilac, and also Lapeer counties. We'll see if that primary risk is mostly tomorrow night or if we're still watching during the afternoon tomorrow. So more on that after we get through tonight. I'm very interested to see if the Weather Service decides to extend these warnings into portions of Midland and also further sections of Gladwin County, especially now that we looked at that storm in Clare County and that was able to come down a little bit more when it comes to the wind. At the very least, these storms are producing a lot of lightning, and it looks like right over the Houghton Lake area now. It's a little tough to see because the rain's overhead, but Houghton Lake itself is right in here, and certainly a lot of lightning. Hopefully everyone gets out of their boats in time. I know it was a pretty nice day today up until these storms started to arrive, and then we've also got this bow structure that's still very present. And I'm going to put the latest track on this and just go to the now phase. And we talked on our previous stream, we've got our reflectivity values here. The reflectivity, just our fancy way of saying the intensity of the rain, the intensity of the snow. The reflectivity refers to the fact that we've got heavier showers in red, heavier showers in orange, and then it tapers off down to green. When we start to see on our maps here these little areas that are shaded in silver, there is potentially some hail involved in that. And the Weather Service in Detroit has opted to extend that warning into Midland County. So while I set that up, let's see what the latest information is for Midland County. It appears the main concern for the Weather Service office in Detroit is the 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts. So let's go back to our velocity tool and we'll get a sense as to the type of wind that is moving toward that Midland County area. Let's go back to Mount Pleasant just quickly as we start to see that wind go right overhead, or right north of Mount Pleasant. We talked just a few minutes ago about it potentially just clipping campus. So I'm going to go back to our downtown camera and see if there is anything different. And we'll go to that one now. Plenty of lightning being produced in that downtown Mount Pleasant camera. It looks like the strongest winds might be just to the north of Mount Pleasant, almost between Mount Pleasant and Rosebush. The strength of the winds going through here, not the strongest we've seen tonight, but still between about 50 and 55 miles per hour being detected in the upper parts of that storm. And so if that part of the storm is headed into Midland County, that seems to be, to me anyway, what the concern would be for the National Weather Service office in Detroit to issue that for Midland. Let's go down to Gratiot County. This is measuring the wind as well. And we've got some stronger sections just to the west of Alma, not quite as strong as areas to the north, but still between about 40 and 50 miles per hour. We'll see if that warning gets extended into Saginaw County. Big picture here. First alert pinpoint Doppler radar shows that line of storms. And let's see what that bow structure is looking like. This is where we've seen the strongest winds so far tonight. I'm going to turn the lightning off just so we can see a little bit better around that Clare County storm that's now getting set to move into Gladwin County. And we're going to take this into Ogama County. So some of the latest storm tracks going right through areas like Clement, Secord, Edwards, Ogama, and West Branch, all between about 8:35 and 8:50. Ogama and West Branch, the farthest out at 8:50. It's important now that we're doing a lot of streaming that sometimes there is a bit of a delay on the streaming. So make sure we are working ahead a little bit as far as those time frames. I'm going to move the timing out of the way. Skidway Lake a little bit closer to 9:03, and you can check the motion of those storms right along that leading edge where it's starting to move into that bow structure in this area right here. It's got that backward C formation where we're seeing some of the strongest winds. So let's see if we can move off to the south here. Delete the storm track off. And we'll go down into Isabella County, which again, a live look there right now where one of our cameras is. We've had several lightning strikes, but frankly, as we've taken a look at that camera each time, really haven't seen too much movement in the trees. It's always possible things could have been happening as we were looking at radar data, but I think that's a pretty good sign as that storm moves through Mount Pleasant. Let's get a motion through the Gratiot County area. Let's see how fast that storm is moving in that section. The latest update should have come through on that one. That one was earlier moving northeast at about 30 miles per hour. Still seems like that is the motion on that. So let's just zoom in on the severe part of that storm. The area that has the warning, we'll loop this. Moving in this direction should be in areas like Breckenridge here within probably the next 10 minutes. Wheeler within the next 10 to 15. Lee around 8:52, Mount Haley at 8:56. So there's your motion right there, moving into the southern sections of Midland County. So I'm guessing that it's that southern section of the Gratiot County storm, the northern side of Gratiot County, but the southern section of that warning probably has a lot to do with the storm motion that's going off to the north and east there. We'll jump on over to the YouTube comments. Doesn't seem like we've got any there, at least not yet. See if we've got any comments over on Facebook really quick. So your warnings go until 8:45 for the Gratiot County storm, and it looks like until 9:15 for Midland. We'll zoom on over to the radar again. And I mentioned this earlier, it seems that the bulk of this line is strongest going from Roscommon right down through Isabella and Gratiot, but we have not seen that severe thunderstorm watch extended over into Saginaw County. We have not seen it extend over into Bay County or even Shiawassee or Genesee County. I know these counties do not have a warning on them at the moment, but some of the activity to the south is not nearly intense as some of the storms that are off to the north. So I would be surprised, unless we really start seeing a flare-up, if we're going to see any sort of movement on that watch into places like Shiawassee or Saginaw County. Now, to be fair, the Midland County area did not have the severe thunderstorm watch, but we have put a severe thunderstorm warning in there. So the watch isn't everything. But again, I think it might signify at least maybe more of a wait and see approach, or more of a not as confident in severe conditions holding into those areas. So Midland County is the region that is going to be under this a little bit longer. Your warning goes until 9:15, and we're actually seeing some clarity in portions of Clare County and also western Isabella County. Those warnings have now been trimmed down. Pulling up the radar information in those areas, you can see that those storms are starting to move out of those regions. And I don't think it's going to be too much longer until you start seeing the severe thunderstorm watch being pulled out of those regions as well. So that would be a good sign for Isabella and also for portions of Clare County, especially with some of the stronger winds that were moving through Isabella County. So just looking at some of the reports that we're getting on Facebook, it sounds like it got gusty for a minute in Mount Pleasant based on the report. Also some heavier rain. We did have some storm damage earlier tonight. Checking out some of the storm video potentially. A lot of dust being kicked up by some of the storms a little bit earlier today too. I'll show you a picture of that when I get a chance here to pull that back up. This were some of the photos that we showed earlier in our newscast tonight. If my mouse would cooperate here. The mouse that we've got on this computer a little bit more sensitive. But this was a storm in Fairgrove earlier tonight, and clearly a menacing looking storm that had a lot of dust being kicked up by some of the strong winds with those storms earlier. And then we also had some straight line wind damage. This was between Saginaw County, between St. Charles and Chesaning. Went back and looked at some of the radar information for that. And did talk to the National Weather Service a little bit earlier this afternoon. And the consensus seemed to be, despite some of those roof shingles coming off, that area right between St. Charles and Chesaning, despite some of the tree damage, that was more than likely straight line winds. The atmosphere in the current setup with that atmosphere today, a little bit more conducive to straight line winds. So I think that's going to be the ultimate conclusion there. We'll get the radar back up and just see if there's any thoughts from the Weather Service in Detroit. We're in our Weather Service chat room, not seeing any updates other than the latest warning that they issued. I'll check with Grand Rapids. Looks like there may be some minor tree damage or some limbs down southeast of Barryton. And Barryton is in Mecosta County. So that was where we had that tornado warning issued a little bit earlier on. Looks like also some tree damage in Mecosta County. Thankfully, I haven't seen any of that translate to our area yet. Doesn't mean it hasn't happened, but haven't gotten any reports of that happening. We'll check our TV5 Facebook page while that radar loops for you. Again, severe thunderstorm warnings in place for primarily eastern Gratiot, western Midland County for now. That is for the whole county of Midland, but for now, the storm is on the western side, and then also eastern Isabella County, northwestern Gladwin County, and also what looks like sort of the central and southern portions of Roscommon County. So a lot of good shelf clouds today. Shelf clouds almost look like those big spaceships as they come through. Looks like certainly some supercell type structures. Just looking at some of the tree damage reports from a little bit earlier, did see a tree come down, well, it looks like in Chesaning too, so getting caught up on some of those comments. Still nothing in our YouTube chat, so feel free, if you're watching on YouTube and you're seeing any damage, feel free to let us know, or if there's any problems with the audio. We did have some technical difficulties a little bit earlier tonight. So again, just want to go down to the south, just for some counties that are not necessarily seeing anything at the moment, but the severe thunderstorm watch is to your west, Shiawassee, Genesee, Lapeer. Severe thunderstorm watch is in place around Lansing, Ionia, Grand Rapids, but really watching some of that rain move in your direction. At least for Saginaw County, the one thing I think we'll have to watch for Shiawassee County is this area here, just because of the amount of lightning associated with it, but we're not seeing a warning with it. The rain, while we've got some downpours, doesn't really look all that intense. Let's just check the wind while we're at this portion of the storm. I wouldn't say the wind looks terribly concerning either. Get a quick sample just to be on the safe side. And some of the strongest winds only about 40 miles per hour. So I think if this survives the trip, you know, potentially a special weather statement might be coming with that rather than a severe thunderstorm warning. And this kind of goes along with the idea that we've been talking about most of this evening as far as a little less energy for these storms as they move off to the east. We'll just check. Not seeing anything really concerning with any rotation either. Potentially maybe some broad rotation, but that's not out of the question with any supercell structures that might be there. Just because the storm rotates doesn't mean it's to the point where it's going to produce any rotation or anything like that. So Gratiot County, you're probably going to be able to come out of this here very soon. Your warning only goes until 8:45, Midland till 9:15. Isabella County, I think you're going to get dropped here very soon. And then Roscommon and Gladwin County, you're until 8:45. So only another 5 minutes to get you to 45 for that storm too. And once we get past this main line, everything sort of comes to an end. So Mandy says, seeing huge bolts of lightning in Mount Pleasant right now. Nicholas says can hear some thunder in Midland. So Mandy and Nicholas, thanks for chiming in so I can actually get a sense of what's going on at ground level in some of these communities. Mount Pleasant camera didn't really look too bad as that storm came through, but some of the winds aloft being detected by radar were certainly up there. A lot of lightning. Especially around Gratiot County and on the western side of Midland County. So I'm going to do a storm track through Midland. Make sure we're getting our proper speeds. This is moving northeast at about 40 miles per hour with that storm. Okay, so let's get our motion here. We'll put this into a loop just to make sure we've got this going in the right direction. Change it over to 40 miles per hour. And we'll just go right along that line. And we'll move it right off to the northeast. We'll loop that back. So some of the areas, Edenville a little bit closer to 9, Midland also a little bit closer to 9 o'clock, Bentley 9:14, Mount Forest 9:23. It looks like Morris Junction, hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly, a little bit closer to 9:30. So we'll move that over. It's still stuck on that storm track. Our mouse is a little bit touchy on this computer. And it does appear that they opted to extend that into Ogemaw County. So let's get information on that Ogemaw County area. That extension is going to go until 9:15. So Ogemaw County, 9:15. And we'll see what the information is for that. That warning is for the 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts and penny-sized hail. So that is the storm that's associated with that bow echo once again. If we can stop the motion here, we'll turn the lightning off so we can get a clearer picture. And I think you're seeing some of the penny-sized hail and some of these brighter spots on radar. These little white dots, I think, are some of these areas that you're seeing that. And the motion on that warning for Ogemaw County, that is moving to the northeast at about 50 miles per hour. So that part of the storm has really picked up the pace. So we'll do a track on that. And we'll have to adjust up to 50 miles per hour. And it almost looks like this is turning a little bit and potentially more towards that West Branch up to Rose City, sort of moving in that direction. So we'll go out ahead of the leading edge and we'll move that to the northeast a little bit more to that direction. So that puts that into Rose City at about 10 to 15 minutes. Mayo at about 9:07, Mentor at about 9:13, and Fairview at about 9:16. So this is the loop over the last hour or so. We'll move that over. And so the warning for Ogemaw County goes until 9:15. The storm does not look quite as intense as you work to the south. It's primarily this area right here where that bow structure is, right around where we've put that track. It looks like this part of the storm, some of these heavier showers might be going more to the south, towards this area on the southern side of Ogemaw County. So I would say it's probably closer to this area here that things are a little bit more concerning when it comes to the part of the storm that's probably a bit more intense. Almost looks like we may have had just a brief area of rotation there. It doesn't look like it lasted too long. Maybe some areas to watch in here. It doesn't look like anything is imminent at the moment. See if we can loop that a little bit more. We'll get a sample of some of the winds in this part of the storm. Those have come down quite a bit, but it could be potentially some of these winds that are getting set to move in, but even those don't look nearly as impressive as some of the wind that was moving through Clare County earlier. So going back down to Midland now, this looks like it's right on the edge, moving through Greendale, right into the Jasper area. Jasper really feeling the effects. Just for a reference point, this is Mount Pleasant after things have started to move out of Mount Pleasant. So clearing up a little bit, you can almost see some sunshine off in the distance, but Jasper is the area that seems to be under the gun in Midland County a little bit more. Also, Edenville, you're not too far from the heart of some of that rain. Gratiot County no longer included in that severe thunderstorm warning, so that has now been canceled. No warnings to the south either. So right now, if you're in a place like Shiawassee and also Genesee County, for the moment, looks like just primarily standard thunder. I think Roscommon, most of that county now looks like it could be dropped. It's this area right through West Branch that seems to be the most intense right now. I'm still not seeing anything terribly concerning when it comes to rotation, so that's good. Seems like this is mostly just a straight line wind threat as it moves on through. Just for my reference, we'll let that play out just for a second. I'm going to see if we have a MI Drive camera in the area near West Branch and just see if perhaps we can get any indication. Looks pretty dark. Really grainy image, of course, but it certainly lines up with what we're seeing on radar, that's for sure. So while that storm's working its way through West Branch, likely again some penny-sized hail. Let's go over to our hail tracker. Maybe we can just see if the radar's picking up on any of the hail size. We'll give this a second to load. Any of the areas that you see in yellow are the areas that are outlined in the severe thunderstorm warning. The hail tracker's not really picking up on anything, so it's either slow to load or it's mostly just pea-sized hail and maybe it's having a tough time seeing it. It is suggesting that through Ogama County there might be some hail that's produced, but it looks like it's really small. So penny-sized hail, the latest on that. Our hail object tool not picking up. There's a summation of the warnings that are currently in place for another 25 minutes or so. Let's see. One Armed Gamer asked about tomorrow. Let's get to that. Lots of thunder in Coleman out on M18. Thank you, Caitlin. Justin, anything at Bay City tonight? Justin, I would say for now, Bay City seems to be looking good. The fact that that warning hasn't been carried from Gratiot County into Saginaw County yet. I know it's moving a little bit more to the north and east, or a little bit more northerly rather than easterly, but it's not even extended into the northwestern section of Saginaw County. Saginaw County and Bay County not included in the severe thunderstorm watch. So it seems like things are going towards the way of potentially this weakening. We talked in our evening newscast tonight, not sure if you were watching those, but one of the critical factors with tonight is, you know, by the time these storms are starting to arrive for us, we're already starting to get into sunset time. And we're starting to lose the heating of the day. Now, that's a gradual process, so there's likely still some fuel to take advantage of, but also one thing that could still be working against some of these storms as they've moved in to, say, areas like Bay County, Saginaw County, or as they've started to move in that direction, is some of those areas from earlier today may be a little bit more stable from some of the rain that passed through earlier in the afternoon. Doesn't always necessarily mean that we can't overcome that, but it certainly makes it a little bit harder. But certainly coming into a less favorable environment the farther east they go. And you're not really seeing anything down towards the Shiawassee County area or Genesee County. I'll move the radar over just a little bit more, because it does look more intense towards Lansing than, say, it does just to the west of Shiawassee County, and we have to remember that these are moving more northeasterly. But there's no warnings to the south. All of this, yeah, it seems like thunderstorm activity, but doesn't seem overly intense. And the fact that it's coming into a less favorable environment, and it looks like they may have just reissued that severe thunderstorm warning for Gratiot County. So just as that started to go away, they decided to bring that back. So let's see here what the latest info is on that. It looks like winds have peaked up or perked up once again, 60-mile-per-hour gusts. And looks like pea-sized hail from the Weather Service in Grand Rapids. So that is a brand new warning for Gratiot County. So let's zoom in on that. And check some other comments before we do. In One Armed Gamer, I haven't forgot about you. We will get back to tomorrow. The fact that that warning just got reissued is a little interesting. So let's loop that back. See what our wind looks like. Yeah, maybe it was just they weren't able, maybe they were not able to, could it be a technical thing? They meant to reissue it and there might have just been a small gap in between. Looks like maybe potentially some broad rotation around portions of Midland County. It doesn't look like anything that's a tight area of rotation, but does look a little bit broad, considering some of the supercell structures we've had tonight. That's not necessarily surprising. And the warning for Gratiot County that was just issued again is for a wind and hail threat. None of the warnings tonight have included that tornado possible tag. So that's good. Usually those are reserved for some storms that maybe show signs of rotation, but not enough to issue a tornado warning. And we haven't seen that tonight. This has primarily just been a straight line wind threat. So let's see if we can get a new storm motion. And I apologize if my voice is starting to go. Usually there's two of us in these types of situations, but meteorologist Diane Phillips, she is off to Alaska the next couple of weeks. And then we also have Matthew probably sleeping at this point to be ready for the morning show tomorrow. So let's see, moving northeast at 30 miles per hour still for that severe thunderstorm warning for Gratiot County, and looks like still moving about 35 to 45 miles per hour in the Midland County storm. So now that that storm has come back up in Gratiot County, really interested to see if that does get extended into some other counties or if they decide to let that come through. Zoom back up into West Branch really quick. It looks like West Branch, you're starting to come out of it. If anyone is watching from Rose City or Foster, those are the areas that are probably going to have the strongest winds come through. Get over to our wind velocity tool. It doesn't look quite as bad off to the south. And that warning also goes until around 9:15. So all three of these warnings go until 9:15. So now that we've caught up on those, again, One Armed Gamer, did ask a question about tomorrow. And Caitlin says, any tornado warnings? Caitlin, not right now. So let's go back to the risk for tomorrow. That is a slight risk in place for most of the TV5 viewing area. Keep in mind, at the beginning of the day today, we had a marginal risk for severe weather. The slight risk is one step up above that mark. And we'll just get on camera here for a minute. Hopefully I'm looking at the right camera. It appears so. Still getting my bearings at this desk. We do have a risk for severe weather tomorrow. That is behind me. That is a slight risk, so a little bit above the marginal risk. One of the things that's going to be interesting tomorrow night is the afternoon hours. We're still going to be building up some heat. We are still going to be building up some mugginess tomorrow afternoon. So I think we have the chance for some storms as we get closer to the late afternoon and early evening hours. Then once those diminish, we'll be watching a line of storms that's coming in along a cold front as we go towards tomorrow night. That round of storms is coming in even later than the round of storms tonight. Now, it will have the support of a cold front as it comes through, so that tends to work a little bit better when it comes to at least assisting those storms, but you still have to have some energy, and usually coming in at that time of day is not the most ideal scenario. So we'll run through the hour-by-hour forecast quickly for tomorrow. Storms tonight eventually move out. So this is around midnight. I think most of everything should be gone by that point, or at least working its way out. As we get closer to 8 o'clock tomorrow morning, I think you'll start to see things open up with the sky conditions. I think you'll start seeing some sunshine move back in. And then eventually what I'm talking about in the afternoon starts popping up as we get closer to around 4 and 5 o'clock. And it really is going to depend on, do we have the energy at that point? Do we have enough wind shear to support that? So could we see a few stronger storms tomorrow afternoon? I think that's certainly possible. Looks like the Weather Service in Gaylord continued that severe thunderstorm warning for Ogemaw County. It looks like it still includes Skidway Lake, West Branch, and also Rose City. But after those start to die off tomorrow night, then it's this round of storms that is coming through late in the evening. So if you look at the timestamp that's right up in that left corner, right around here, you'll notice that says 1 o'clock Wednesday morning. This line, even later than the line that is moving through tonight, and a lot of our models seem to be suggesting that even with the support of that cold front, there's a weakening trend going into tomorrow night. Now, the environment can change quite a bit from today into tomorrow. So just because it's showing that weakening trend right now does not mean that that will continue. It means that we feel at least good enough about things for the moment that we do not have a first alert weather day in place for tomorrow. That can always change as Matthew takes a look at things for tomorrow. But it's another situation where the arrival time with that line that comes through tomorrow night may not be quite as conducive for us as it is in portions of West Michigan. So we'll get back to the warnings really quick. Those will load. I'm going to take a quick sip of water. Hopefully help the voice out a little bit. Still expecting these warnings to continue for another about 14 minutes. All of them expire at 9:15. It's important to know that the watch has not been extended. We offered that as a possibility depending on how things progressed during our evening newscast tonight. Just because your county is not included right away doesn't mean it can't be added to it. But if you're watching from Isabella County, if you're watching from Clare County, you should probably be trimmed out of that warning here very soon. I would imagine Gratiot County, once this warning clears the area, especially the east side, the west side looks okay. You'll be trimmed out of that severe thunderstorm watch here very soon. Grand Rapids, Big Rapids, those areas on the west side, you are likely not to see this continue for much longer. The storm that's in the north moving through Ogemaw County, I don't see that being extended into Iosco County at this time. It seems like the most intense part of that storm is getting set to move north of Rose City. So that would be out of our region. There is no longer a severe thunderstorm warning in place for Gladwin County. Let's zoom back into the Midland area and just go to a live image. We'll turn the lightning off. There's plenty of lightning around that county. But right into Gordonville, right into Dice Corners, St. Elmo, Lee. This is the area that seems to have the heaviest rain in Midland County right now. This is just to the southwest of Midland itself. So it's currently around 9:03. Let's put a storm track on this because that's getting set to move right into Midland, getting set to move towards US 10. And that storm is still moving northeast at about 40 miles per hour. So we'll use this tool and we'll put the most intense part of the storm going northeast at about 40 miles per hour. So that should start arriving in Midland roughly in the next 5 to 10 minutes. Jack Barstow Airport a little bit closer to 9:15. Midland City Forest 9:15. And so far the Weather Service has not extended that warning any further to the east. And it looks like, just to be on the safe side, the Weather Service office in Gaylord did decide to extend that just to the northwest corner of Iosco County. But they did extend it mostly to the north. So that most intense part of the storm, the Rose City area, this region right here where that bow echo is going, seems to be taking more of a turn to the north. But perhaps it's this area right here. Let me get my pointer tool back out, that they're accounting for that to possibly swing through that northwesterly section of Iosco County. The rainfall certainly looks less in that area. That warning that they just issued for western Alcona, Ogama County, Oscoda County, and northwest Iosco County, still just for 60 mile per hour wind gusts. They have dropped the penny-sized hail, so it looks like that hail size is starting to go down. Reset our warnings to the south also. Gratiot County still until 9:15, so another 10 minutes or so. They have not updated that time for Midland County either. Owasso, you've got some storms that are just to your west. Those have a special weather statement on them, which means we've got wind gusts of about 50 to 55 miles per hour. So those are coming in just shy of severe thresholds. So our severe thunderstorm criteria is 58 miles per hour and above. And for Shiawassee County, that special weather statement that's just to your west, it looks like that's for winds that are just under that mark. So we'll put a storm track on it. Still moving to the northeast. So we'll try to include Owasso. Looks like about 10 o'clock. So within the next hour, that will be our 10 o'clock newscast. So we'll be involved in that. But again, no severe thunderstorm warning for that. No extension of the severe thunderstorm warning into northwest Saginaw County near Merrill. Jamie Cronkite, hopefully I pronounced that correctly, Jamie, I apologize. Starting to get windy in Midland. I can see that. You're probably getting the gust front out ahead of the storm. Christina Sanchez, is it going to be like earlier? Anytime we're talking about warnings, you know, potentially the winds are strong enough to cause some damage. I can't say for sure if it's going to be like earlier. Also, not sure where you're commenting from. Jamie says lots of lightning too. So it certainly looks that way around Midland. I wish we had our Dell camera readily accessible. I would love to view that one. Let me just play this out really quick. I think I have an idea as to maybe where I can get that Dow Diamond camera. I'll just leave this on for a moment. Might be able to find it. Let's see. Just got to look through a couple of things. doesn't seem like I've got at least quick access to it, so I'm not going to mess things up while we're on the stream. But yeah, certainly lots of lightning getting set to move into Midland County. Also plenty of lightning moving through Gladwin. No severe thunderstorm warning there. Would imagine the winds are not strong enough in that area. Lightning not a factor, even though as tense as it might be. So Christina says Gagetown and Tuscola Township, so that helps clear things up. Is it going to be like earlier in Tuscola? I would say if I had to lean a certain direction, probably not. By the time these storms get to you, we'll have lost quite a bit of energy from the day. It's these southern sections of the line here that we're not seeing any warnings. There's no warnings around Lansing. There's no warnings west of Shiawassee County. There's still some gusty winds at times, so depending on how well they hold together, I can't say it still won't be pretty gusty as it moves through, but earlier today, the winds were a little intense moving through the thumb and even into Saginaw County. So probably not that strong, but I think gusty winds are still certainly possible. So we're running up on about 5 minutes here. I'm going to see if the Weather Service in Detroit has decided to extend anything, or see if they have offered any thoughts on that. Looking through Grand Rapids at the moment, so I got to change chat rooms. It doesn't look like it at the moment. So we'll see what they do. We've got about 4 minutes until they'll have to extend that. So far they have not. For those just joining the stream, this is where our current warnings sit. Gratiot County, Isabella County, or Gratiot County, Midland County, not Isabella County, Iosco County, and also the north side of Ogemaw County. We'll go up to Ogemaw and find out where the most intense part of that is. It looks like that's now starting to move out of Rose City, at least the most intense part of it. We'll sample some of the winds here. Looks like those are starting to come down a bit, not detecting nearly as much wind as earlier. We'll sample some of the winds in the Midland area. 35 miles per hour. Keep in mind, this is a certain level of the storm, so it doesn't necessarily mean it's that speed at ground level. We'll have to keep an eye on this. Let me just check one more thing. Looks to potentially be maybe a little bit of rotation near the Midland area. Looks pretty broad at this time, and you have to remember that when we're dealing with these types of storms, that just because you see rotation doesn't necessarily mean tornadic. We've had some supercell type structures to some of these storms, so sometimes that can lead to rotation of the actual thunderstorm, but not necessarily produce a tornado at ground level. So we'll keep an eye on that pretty closely. Again, it looks pretty broad at the moment. taking a look at something else here. Very interested to see here in 2 minutes what we do with this Midland storm and whether that's going to be extended. Jump back over to YouTube. Still no new comments there. And just in the event, I think it's a really low chance, but just in the event that anything changes when it comes to, if we get a warning of a different type, we will end the stream here and move to our main studio. Not seeing anything that would suggest that's imminent or anything like that, but just in case, because we are seeing what looks like maybe some broad rotation there near the Midland area. So if you are in, just as we let these storms play through, if you're in Isabella County, you are in the clear. If you are in Gratiot County, US 127 to the west, and even just east of US 127 now, you are in the clear. No warnings despite some of the intensity to the west of Shiawassee County. Midland warning, it is now 9:15. That warning has now gone away. So clearly the Weather Service is not seeing enough to continue that warning into Bay County. And the warning that is on the north side of Ogemaw County and getting set to move into Oscoda County to the north, that warning is still active. That goes until 9:45. But not seeing anything, overly concerning with that one when it comes to the wind as well, at least based on radar indication. So what we will do is we'll keep a close eye on that storm in Ogemaw County, but just for the sake of saving my voice here, just remember, we'll go through this one more time. We've got a severe weather outlook for tomorrow as well. Slight risk area level 2 out of 5. We've got a marginal risk off to the east. The marginal risk just a little bit less. We'll be watching sort of how storms fire up tomorrow afternoon. Anything that develops in the afternoon, we'll watch closely and see if we get some hail and gusty winds just like we did today. And then also once those storms move out, which should be later tomorrow evening, we'll likely have another line of storms that moves in from the west, but this round coming in even later tomorrow evening than what our round is moving through tonight. A little bit less energy to deal with. It will have the support of a cold front as it comes through, so it will have that working in its favor, but still not an ideal time for that severe weather to come through. So just as we finish up here, the National Weather Service in Detroit has opted to go with more of a special weather statement for Saginaw, Midland, and Bay County. So what they are issuing is for winds of 50 miles per hour. So winds that are still not something that you want to take lightly. We saw winds earlier today that were not under a severe thunderstorm warning. Caused some damage in parts of those counties too. That could have been a microburst or perhaps a strong gust front out ahead of the storm. But the Weather Service is opting not to continue that warning into portions of Bay, Saginaw, or the rest of Midland County for the rest of tonight. So if new warnings pop up, we'll have those on our ticker on air. And also, if anything requires us to break in, of course, we'll always do that too. Otherwise, we'll see you with our 10 o'clock newscast.